Ah, the remake. A forbidden taboo to some, and a much needed breath of fresh air for others. It's no real shocker that this subject is as divisive as it is within the horror fandom, as it's usually quite common for remakes and reboots to either completely miss the point, or not accomplish anything that wasn't already accomplished by the original. That's not to say that all remakes are bad. Films like Cronenberg's The Fly, the 1980s Blob movie, and even as recent as The Evil Dead from 2013 have proven that remakes can be great and stand on their own. Yes, they are still remakes at the end of the day, but you see the influence from their original counterparts taking new forms with fresh ideas. On the opposite side of the remake coin are the remakes that didn't bring anything new to the table and just banked on general audiences' want for mean and nasty violence coupled with gratuitous sex scenes, such as My Bloody Valentine 3D, The Hills Have Eyes, and House of Wax. In 2003, Michael Bay's production company Platinum Dunes would release their remake of the 1974 classic The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it would kick off the upcoming remake era in horror. It was to no one's surprise when a new Friday the 13th was announced under this new production powerhouse in 2008, later to be released in the following year. Like most, if not all of the slasher classic remakes, this film was given negative reviews upon its release, with most critics citing the usual gripes of it being a cliché, forgettable entry in the franchise. I was lucky enough in high school to catch a leak of this movie online, and when I first watched it as a young horror fan, I initially felt the same. But now, 13 years have passed, and after a much-needed rewatch, I genuinely feel like this is one of the best entries in this 12-film franchise. So kick back, relax, and let's take a trip to Camp Crystal Lake as we look at the Friday the 13th remake. When it comes to horror icons, I don't think there's a character that is more synonymous with the genre than Jason Voorhees. Even though Michael Myers and Leatherface have been around longer, our favorite hockey mask wearing serial killer ushered in a new age of slashers that would continue through the 80s and early 90s. Gone were the provocative killers of the past to make way for a generation that focused solely on the glory kills offered by these titans of terror. Friday the 13th was never a series about deep themes or profound allegories. It was about Jason killing promiscuous camp counselors, and we've all loved it for that reason all these years. So why all the hate for a remake that embraces the series' roots, I wonder? If you ask me, this movie is a wonderful coupling with the first 4 parts of the original timeline, which it's made to be a condensed version of. A big complaint of the early Friday films from critics and fans alike is that they're all pretty samey in one note, filled to the brim with cliches that would become a mainstay in the coming decade of horror. This movie takes the best aspects of the pre-zombie Jason films and gives it that modern coat of paint, so to say. Thankfully, we're given a chance to skip through the events of that boring first film and go straight into the meat and potatoes of why we're here. A deranged Pamela Voorhees is shown in a dark and stormy flashback during the intro, ending just like the climax of the first film where she's beheaded by the last survivor of her massacre, which just goes to show you that you really can't beat the classics. The high production value also makes the decrepit ruins of Camp Crystal Lake feel so much more foreboding and menacing than in previous films. Knowing Jason could be anywhere, blending into the shadows and waiting to strike, makes the threat feel that much more tangible. The meatbags this time around are like an Avengers roll call of classic slasher character tropes, featuring the party girl, the douchebag, the stoner comedic relief, and the glue that holds it all together, the final girl. There's a cheeky bit of self-awareness written into these characters, as if they were told to fully lean into the cliche stereotypes they had been given, and I think it works perfectly. I mean, Chewie says it best.
Let's just all be one big happy cliche.
I think it goes without saying that the main selling point of this movie is Jason himself. I mean, this is a Friday the 13th movie after all, and he is smack dab in the middle of the movie's poster. Earlier, I remarked about the best remakes being the ones who take the influence of the original and bring their own special flair to the table, and Friday 09 takes that and puts all of its new stat points into the reimagining of its classic icon. We're shown that Jason now sets traps for his victims, seen with the bear trap in the opening, and him leaving Lawrence bleeding out and calling for help. It's something we've never seen him do before. Gone is Jason's lazy, uninterested walk, and now we're left with Olympic sprinter murder machine Jason. I mean, just look at the way he chews this cardio, even in boots. I don't know how he does it. The baghead design has been updated to be sleeker and more form-fitting instead of blatantly ripping off the burlap sack from the town that dreaded sundown. About halfway through the film, we're finally treated to the iconic look Jason is known for when he stumbles upon a hockey mask after killing a local weirdo that, to this day, I still have zero clue as to why they wrote him to have fucked a mannequin. Seriously, what the fuck, Friday09?
It's just you, baby. It's been a long time, Gina. You remember that special night we had? Remember when you took my virginity?
You what?
Fun fact about this character, Donnie the mannequin fucker, later on we're shown Jason hauling away a headless corpse back to camp to dispose of, and the clothes are that of Donnie's, but earlier when Jason had killed Donnie on screen, it was by a throat slit and not a beheading, but there's a deleted scene that shows how Donnie's original planned death was supposed to go. Wonder why they would change it if the body was still meant to be his anyway, but whatever. Now, I know what you're thinking. I've spent the last while going on and on about how great I think this movie is, but don't worry, I naturally have my criticisms of the film as well. Don't worry, I'll be saving my bias for whenever I decide to do my videos about the Child's Play franchise.
Don't fuck with the Chuck.
One immediate criticism I have for this movie is how the main characters are written. Now, I know I said I like the cliche character writing for the victims, but the main characters, Clay and Jenna, are just so vapidly boring that it's a pain watching the actors try and salvage the lack of character. Clay's only character trait is looking for his sister, while Jenna's is being the nice girl of her group. Such a shame when you consider just how many cool main characters the series has given us over time. Another aspect of the film that I find to be disappointing is the lack of variety in Jason's kills. Outside of some exceptions like the axe in Lawrence's back or the burning inside the sleeping bag, most of the kills in this movie are with his patented machete. This may seem like a weird criticism to have considering just how important the machete is to Jason, but I've always felt like he's had some of the most creative kills amongst the pantheon of horror legends, and this movie just doesn't deliver on it all the way. Lastly, and this isn't even a criticism but more me venting my frustration, I wish we would have gotten a sequel to this movie. I think Derek Mears plays an amazing Jason, and it would have been great to see him reprise the role as a superpowered zombie Jason, but sadly, we would never get to see that sequel. It has been 13 years since we have last seen Jason Voorhees on the big screen, and as much as wannabe horror snobs would like to disagree, I think there is a void in the genre that I would like to see the big man fill. You know, once all that legal buffoonery is settled and put to bed. In the meantime, you can always check out Vincent DeSanti's Never Hike short fan films on YouTube. I'll leave links to both in the description. Both movies are such a love letter to this franchise that I've grown up with and love so much, so please check them out if you have the time. If you're wondering where this movie ranks for me amongst the other films in the franchise, I'd put it at number 3 under Part 4 and Part 6 respectively. Thank you to everyone for watching. I hope I could convince you to maybe give this movie another shot if you didn't like it upon your first viewing, or if you didn't mind the spoilers, maybe check it out for yourself. In the meantime, I appreciate all of you. Take care, and be kind to one another.